Hello, guys. Welcome back. I know my subconscious is shouting at me. I got up super early, went back to bed, and I had a nightmare. And usually, if you're having nightmares, your subconscious, whatever, is trying to tell you something. And I had a dream that I just finished up work here, and it was 1 in the morning. I don't know if that's important. And I hear this guy weed whacking around my property at 1 in the morning, yeah, and I have this mental image he must be out there with a flashlight weed whacking. He's super close to the house. And of course, I start freaking out because what the hell is he gonna, be doing it here at 1 in the morning? And what's happening? And is he gonna come in the house? And is he gonna demand money or what's going on? And I'm trying to shut my lights out. I have a power strip for everything in here. And I shut the power strip out and the lights refuse to go out. And I'm even trying to get the lights to shut off, like trying to, all of a sudden it has all these switches, which it doesn't, and they're not going out. And I'm sitting there on the floor crying because the lights won't go out, and he has to know I'm here, and the lamp is on in the living room, and I can't get any of the lights to shut off, and I'm just sitting on the floor crying, and that's when I wake up. And I know it has to be a very obvious metaphor about no matter what I'm doing to cover up my light, it's going to shine. And about, feeling maybe exposed to the wrong kind of people. Yeah, we could read a lot into that dream. And the thing is, it was kind of like my psyche warning me because, what do Odin and Loki usually do with me? If Loki's on his own, he's pretty good. We have International House of Awesome. Odin steadily clears out the house until it's only Norse gods, and then he steadily clears out Norse gods until it's only Loki and Odin. And I can tell he's getting ready to give Loki a good shove out the door. He can be very territorial, and he doesn't have a problem with it. You could sit down and talk to him and take him to therapy for 2 centuries, and he still wouldn't get it. He don't want to get it. He wants what he wants, and he's gonna get it. And so, in typical Odin fashion, after he got his gift and he was all excited, and I go to bed and I talk to the gods, as I'm going to sleep, put on the music, start talking to the gods, kind of recapping the day. Odin is up front as usual, as I'm, spending time with the gods, and all of a sudden he abruptly pulls away. And I wasn't done having time with my god yet. I'm like, where are you? Get back here. And he has abruptly pulled away, and I get this feeling of irritation of leave me alone. And 1 second, guys, I am sorry. It felt like he was both near me, and yet there was like this wall up between us. Like, leave me alone, get the hell away from me. And I thought, I know he's strange, but this is the strangest thing that's ever happened yet. And, it was right in the middle of us having some kind of discussion. And I thought, okay, you know. And I got confused. And I said, am I putting this all up? Am I expecting this behavior out of him? And, I'm doing this kind of energy block. But it wasn't anything like that because I went to Loki. Then I'm like, talking to Loki. You could call it prayers. You could call it talking to the gods, whatever makes you happy. And I said to Loki, I said, I don't have any idea what's going on. Odin was like being all paying attention and we were talking, in the time I spent with the gods at the end of the day. And I said, then he's like real frosty and frigid and leave me alone. And I feel like this wall or kind of barrier go up and it feels like he's both there and not there. And Loki's kind of like shrugging, being like, well, it is Odin. And I said, this happens every time. I get him a gift and he gets like this. Now, we can have this unhealthy pattern in our relationship. Sometimes I'm the one doing something, to be perfectly honest. And I said, it's just like we both want to destroy this relationship. We want it, and yet we both want to see it fail, and we'll do things that we know are almost guaranteed to make the relationship fail. And when I had that nightmare this morning, I got up and I said, I think my mind's warning me about something. I don't want to see you for a couple days." And Odin gets kind of affronted, and it feels like he's close, and then he's like, "Okay, I'm going." And he always does this. And I'm like, "Oh, okay, go." And well, as soon as he's going to go, I can feel like the other gods moving closer because it's like Odin just I don't know how he does it, but he kind of pushes the other gods out. And I've told them repeatedly. I said, you're his equal. Why don't you just push back in? And I said, this is why I kind of get tired of the Norse gods. The Norse gods only come around if Odin's here. And this is just my experience. I haven't seen anybody else ever have this much trouble with them. And, once he's gone, it's like the Norse contingent moves out except for Loki. And Loki's like, "I'm a free agent." And then everybody else comes back in, and the house is back to International House of Awesome Sans and Norse gods. And I said, this is the damn strangest dysfunctional relationship. Usually Loki and I are the ones having problems, but we haven't had time to spend together because Odin's just been, slooping up all the time and getting too much time. You can give a god too much time. I know it sounds, contradictory because when you enjoy being with a god, you want to just spend all the time you have with them. But then they get like this and they get, kind of, unmanageable, I guess. And it's just that Odin won't let go. Odin will do this. Odin will get something. Odin will have a Odin episode. Odin will leave. Odin will you'll feel him prowling around or hanging around the periphery. Odin will come back in, and the whole cycle starts again. And it's, I'm blaming Odin here, but if Loki were in charge, it might be Loki acting out that trauma with me. And we've tried everything, guys. We have tried looking up articles and reading books and watching videos. It's kind of hard to go into, say, see a couples therapist and take your god with you and go, well, the one you can't see is the one causing the problem. And then have the therapist look at you and go, I think you need another kind of therapist. So you can't do that. So it's not like you can take your god to, a couples therapy session. You can't. Even if you could, let's say they were like the world's most gifted psychic or whatever, and you could take them in, the god would probably convince them it was all your fault. Am I right? And usually when a relationship fails or there's drama, it's because it's usually 50-50. And you only know that when you look back years later and you say, yeah, if I hadn't reacted this way or did this or did that, but you don't know that at the time because you're a different person years later. The different person years later would have been okay in that relationship, and then new problems would have cropped up because sometimes people aren't compatible. So, Odin will be gone for like a little bit and then he'll come back in, but already everyone else has floated back in, like Asmodeus and everybody else. It was literally like they were all waiting on the sidelines. One second, guys. Okay, are we still going? I hope so. This equipment's really janked. Anyhow, everyone else is back in, and someone had asked me made a comment, and I don't know if they meant it to be rude or not. You have to make snap decisions when you run a channel. And, every so often you get the comment of how do you know you're not making this stuff up in your head? You don't know. You don't know. Did the saints experience Jesus or did the saints have problems that needed medication? Did Moses talk to God or did Moses need medication? Did any of the heroes in the sagas talk to the gods or did they need medication? You don't know. One person's religious experience is another person's active imagination or mental disorder. You don't know. That's the problem with working with God. You're never going to know. Welcome to hell. You're never gonna know. You're never gonna know if it's you having a valid religious experience or it's your overactive imagination. Now you can ask for signs, which is why we do this shit. You can ask for signs, you can ask for tales, but you're never going to know. Is it just your imagination? Is it something in your psyche? Did you create a tupla? You're never really going to know. You have to take a relationship with any god on faith. Look at the Christians in 2020. Half of them are going crazy and screaming it's Armageddon and their loving God's going to kill us all because he's mad again. And half of them seem like they can't find him, and there's just a few that are hanging on. It seems like the majority of the ones that are still decent and sane are just barely hanging on, but they're completely lost because this was not the deal, man. And I grew up in that environment, so no, this was not the deal for them. They have to have faith and have a lot of it now. And faith means believing without proof, believing without, scientific proof. Let's put it that way, because you can get spiritual proof, but you can't take spiritual proof and put it in the lab. Often, believers will push back against atheists and say, well, you want to put God under a microscope, and that's just not possible. Loki's not going to show up in a lab, on command and prove he exists. And if he did, he'd fuck up shit and they'd find a rational scientific explanation rather for why that happened. And the two worldviews aren't compatible. And unfortunately, we're taught both worldviews in this world. And which is good, but you then always find yourself teetering between one or the other. Scientific worldview, if you can't prove it or measure it in a lab, it does not exist. Spiritual worldview, why not? You have to kind of walk the in between. You guys know I tend atheist at times. There are times when, I'm like, why would gods even act this way? This all has to be in my head. I have a shitty imagination. Why can't I imagine nice gods? And and there are times where I can take it as, I have faith because I feel I've had an experience, and there are times where I honestly don't know. The thing is, I saw it written in an article once that someone said, even if these are imaginary friends in our heads and the gods don't exist, as long as it's helping you and comforting you and helping you make good decisions in life, what do you really care? If it's just parts of our brain or whatever a lot of people try to say now because they're uncomfortable with the idea of actual living gods who exist and interact and want stuff, what would it matter? You know? You would still have these companions and they would still give you, usually good advice, except for Loki and Odin. They're the ones that if I wanted to go spend $10 on lottery tickets or go play the ponies, they'd be like, yeah. So, not always, but I've realized sometimes, they'll give good advice and sometimes they'll give damn full advice. And that's when we talk about testing discernment to see if it's actually the gods doing it or it's you talking to yourself. And again, that's another aspect of belief, knowing when it's the God talking to you or it's just you talking to yourself in the God's voice. And you can't prove that phenomenon exists either. You can't prove that when they give you bad advice, it's you talking to yourself, or when they say mean things, it's you talking to yourself. But experience usually proves out that if your God's starting to act really bipolar, and they're usually nice and serene and everything, and then every so often they're showing up and yelling at you. And I don't mean because you're not doing something you should. I mean like saying mean, horrible, negative, abusive things to you. That is probably you talking to yourself and you think you need punished for something and you need to sit down with the God and say, this is happening. And, again, it's all belief system. It's all belief. You cannot prove a spiritual event. For every spiritual event, people will say they've proved, other people will say, well, that's a hoax. That's a hoax. You can't make people believe if they can't. As far as we know, it's something they think it's maybe evolutionary advantageous to have a belief system. Nobody knows why. And other people say it's wiring in your brain you either literally can or can't believe. And other people will disagree because people have gone from being an atheist to being a believer because of a profound spiritual experience. And people have gone from being the deepest believer to being an atheist because their God let them down on something. And it might be, it's easy to stand on the sidelines and go, yeah, but every God doesn't catch everything. But to that person, that meant everything. So yeah, of course they lost their faith. They had a thing in the camps in World War II where the rabbis got together and they said they had a trial, you know, and they said there is no God. They judge God, guilty of not existing, and the rabbis turned atheists, and I don't blame them. I mean, they were in a fucking death camp. I don't blame them. So, things can happen to take away our faith. Sometimes the gods just don't seem to be there for us in terrible situations like that, and in situations like COVID when some poor people lost their whole family and it ripped through convents and it's going through colleges and all this other stuff. And, you know, people are grappling with their faith now and wondering, is any of this real? The problem is we don't have a celestial rule book. No god or goddess has ever come down, even though plenty of people will claim they have, and handed us a celestial rule book that says, well, this is how the world functions. This is why all this bad stuff happens. And, we will step in from time to time, but we're not changing this, this, and this. We can just go from personal experiences in our lives and we'll be able to look back and say, this is when I feel the gods helped, and this is when I felt like there were no gods at all, and this is when it seemed like I did everything on my own, and we'll just never know. You'll never know. And why do people often ask me if I'm just, not crazy, and I wasn't sure if it was tending towards that or not in the comment. Because, how do I have Loki and Odin here, and then it seems like Odin goes away and all the others come back? I don't know. I don't know. It just, is it something I'm putting up? Am I the one putting up the blocks? Do the gods not exist and I just need to be on strong medication? Do I need to go live in a nice place where people talk in quiet voices? I don't know. I just know that this is the phenomenon I have with Odin. He comes in, he dominates everything, shoos everyone else back, takes on way more than he can handle, and then when everything collapses, he walks away and everybody else has to come in. I'll give him credit. He can seem like he helps out, but again, in my experience, gods aren't really big on, I did that. I need the glory. Most gods aren't, except for Odin. Loki will help and not even tell you helped. But it's a weird year. 2020 is putting enough pressure on people's relationships, divine or otherwise, as it is. And that's why I said sometimes we can tend towards atheism. Atheism is a belief that there are no gods, not just there isn't the Christian gods, it's belief there's no gods. But that still doesn't, I've seen atheists write and say, that still doesn't preclude that if they think they're having a God experience, they won't talk to that God. Um, there are people that get their hackles raised because of that, because here's this person claiming they don't have any belief in gods, and yet they're claiming they're the special spokesperson of God X, and this is what God X is telling them, and they got chosen because they're an atheist. And some people roll their eyes and go, uh-huh. I don't know. I don't know. And there are people that, whatever. It's just I'm losing my train of thought here. But it's a year where everybody's going to be struggling with their beliefs. One second, guys. Okay, sorry about that. And it's just a year where, as far as I can get, and this is just one person's experience, there's no reward at the end for the person who had the best faith. We humans make a fucking competition over everything because we're an animal species. There's no reward for having the best faith. There's no reward for how you conduct rituals and what you use or don't use. There's no reward if you even did rituals or didn't. I believe in 2,000 years of the church spoon feeding people stuff and telling them, yeah, if you give a daughter or a son to the church, you'll get all these special. No, you won't. Um, and it's one of those things where now the church, you see them, they're trying to retread, and they're trying to. I mean, they can never dig themselves out of the dumpster they're in, but they're trying to retread and make life better and better, supposedly, for the nuns, and they don't have to kiss the ground anymore, supposedly. And it's like, it's too late. You demean people for way too long, for centuries. You did all these horrible things. It's too late. You could become the most progressive institution on earth now, and people could find all the answers from God or whomever that they need. It's too late, man. It's like if McDonald's started serving French food. It's too late. You go there for garbage. Nobody expects McDonald's to aim any higher, right? You go there for garbage fast food that tastes okay and you know is bad for you, but that is McDonald's role in life. McDonald's role is not to become anybody that's going to get a Michelin star. They're just not. So, you have to kind of take faith in what it is. You can never prove it, and that's really okay. There are people that believe in aliens, and there are people who think they're nuts. There are people who think they've been abducted, and people think they're nuts. People believe in the gods, and people that think they're crazy because they were raised to believe there's only one true God, and all the others are made up silly nonsense. Which is where the atheists are useful because they come in and go, "Oh, only your God exists. Only yours. All the rest are silly made up nonsense. But yours is the one true God. Only yours." And the pagans are standing on the sidelines like, "Thanks for the assist. I know you didn't mean it, but thank you, man." So, it's kind of a crazy world. You're never gonna have proof. You're never gonna know if you're making it up all in your head. And I know that's discomforting, but that's why it's called faith. That's why when you have classical training in a church or something, some point, some adult or some priest or something will tell people, you'll feel faith in your heart, or you'll feel faith, whatever, or you'll feel faith in your soul, or, you'll know when you have faith because you'll have inner peace, or you'll have a knowing, or whatever, trendy word they pick up. And they'll say it's nothing you can prove in school. It's nothing you prove in college. It's nothing you can prove in a lab. You can't prove your faith. People do crazy things to try to prove it, but you really can't prove your faith to the pleasure of a atheist or a doubter, and it's really none of their damn business anyhow. They need to mind their own business. If they don't believe, they don't believe, and nothing on earth is going to change that. A god could appear and talk to them and they'd say they hallucinated. So, and the same thing for a believer, true believer. I hate to say it that way, but someone who's absolutely cannot be otherwise may have atheistic periods in their life, but they'll always circle back around to belief because they're wired that way. Evolution, you pick. But, I hope you guys enjoy this one. I am going to take it easy this weekend because I am still feeling dizzy. But I get this every couple years or every other year, whatever, for my allergies. It's just I'm adjusting and my allergies aren't enjoying the change of seasons. So if you guys like what you see, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you later. Bye bye.